Good afternoon. I'm Gloria Nelson, your host with TUG, and we are so glad to have you join us today for our TUG Connects 365 programming. As you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, allow me to give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community for Infor distribution software users. We've all heard that phrase that knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. Today is but one of our many in-depth sessions in our TUG Connects 365 series. TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence. That is a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do. And now it is my pleasure to introduce John Kociuba, our network leader today with RW Gibson Consulting, who is going to introduce his fellow panelists. John, go ahead and take it away.
Well, good afternoon.
Have you in our sight lines?
Well, good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's actually good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, actually, to all of you. I also want to welcome everybody that will be watching on YouTube after. My name is John Kociuba, and I'm the Assembly and Service Network Leader, and we're glad to present to you a day in the life of a service department. Before I start, I would like to thank everybody for their participation today and the success of these webinar series. As many of us are probably zoomed out, I appreciate your time today. Lastly, I'd like to thank all our panelists today. I'm honored and privileged that and their knowledge is far superior than mine, so I appreciate their time. As you know, and we'll let everybody introduce themselves as they present, but we do have three different companies joining us today. One, Steve with Midwest Wheel, who's on CloudSuite Field Service fully, Graphic Solutions, who I believe is on ISM on-prem and is looking to move to CSFS. And then myself, coming from the behind, we just purchased CSD and CSFS, so we are currently looking to move to that platform. As we've discussed in the past, this is a two-part series. Part one happened on October 30th. And if you need to rewatch that series, I do have the link below at TUG CSFS 1. And today we'll just be building on our session from last time and adding parts, labor, and closing an SRO within service warranty and with ISM and CSFS. Obviously, some ground rules and some stuff that we want to talk about is we've had some future topics come up in the last series. We're going to be postponing our February one, and we're going to be talking about CSFS rentals. We'll be moving that to TUG 2021. And our next session will be on March 12th, where we will be talking about all the new Infor CSFS enhancement requests. Other topics that we'll be moving forward in 2021, again, as we move closer to TUG 2021, we'll be talking about CSFS rentals, CSFS mobile app. We'll have a session on Ask a CSFS ISM user. And there's also several people interested in vendor claims in CSFS and inspections. And just to reiterate, if you haven't joined our group, we're obviously at the usergroup.org. It's a forum of companies that assemble and service products within their distribution business. So we talk about many different modules: service warranty, kit production, value add, CSM, CSFS, and all of the above. So be sure to sign up and to get our posts. Also, as I was saying in the past, I'm a big proponent of the Infor communities as well, where the CSFS newsletter is posted. That has changed recently. You now can access that through Infor Concierge. So I've listed these scenarios, so be sure to sign up and see what's new in CSFS. Also, as I reflect on 2020 and look at 2021, my theme this year, or our theme this year, is where are all these CSFS enhancements? So we have a lot of people interested in the application, and we want to bring that application so that everybody can use it. And I just logged in yesterday and realized we only have 11 enhancement requests. So as you know, Infor is hearing us, and we want to improve CSFS. So I'm hoping that in 2021 we can all improve the product. Ground rules to the webinar, again, is we'd love for you to join the conversation. Your experience is invaluable, and we appreciate it. Your mics are muted at this point, but if you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A chat bubble, raise your hand, or even join the conversation. One note, all questions will be seen by everyone, and if you have the same question, there's no need to type it in again, just like it and it'll move to the top. And of course, for me, I just want to have fun, and hopefully we get something out of it. On to introductions. Maybe many of you don't know, but I'm the ERP manager with the Gear Center group of companies. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I think a lot of people probably don't know where that is. So I've listed this map. We're in the Great White North. So. All right, so we're on to the demo. So we'll give each user 10 minutes. So I will personally move 10 minutes on service warranty, and then I'll hand off to Shawn and then Steve, and then we'll wrap up with questions. All right, so where I left off last time was we did go into service warranty, and we created a SRO work order, and we printed the repair order. So I'm just highlighting again what we printed. We do print this at our branches, so we give to our technicians. So obviously the next step for us would be is that we want to assign the work to the technician and get them to log into and post time to the job. So we can do that in two ways in service warranty. One way is to use the Swelge instance. We do use this. We use a scanning functionality, so the user doesn't have to enter the work order. As you saw from our work order, we have a barcoding, so we do use a barcode scanner here. All they do is they log their technician on the barcode scan, log into the SRO, and then hit the log on button. So as you can see, it says started. Obviously, there's another option. You can use the Swelge and manually post their labor. But what we like to do is, and again, if you're a manager or you're in charge of a department, we want to know at any given time what a technician is working on. So the Swelge screen does allow that. So as you can see, I just logged in, and it does tell me that I've been working on that job for about a minute. So the technician's obviously working on it. If he requires any parts, then he goes to the back counter. Again, I'm going to just jump back into this original work order that I was in from last time. You can see that we did talk about this. We like to present our customers with different options of the invoice. So in this particular case, we're just building a component, so we only want to give him a subtotal of what we're doing. When we move to the parts, again, for me, there's several things here. Obviously, it looks like an order entry invoice order in SX. A couple deficiencies. Obviously, we want to be able to mass load parts. We do have some bill of materials from vendors that can be 50, 100 part numbers. Very difficult for us to do in this particular case. But as I said, we can charge as many parts. You can see net available. That's, again, that's something that Steve and Shawn will talk about in CSFS as being an issue. We also have the ability to source parts, again, no different than any other OE and CSFS. There is obviously some deficiencies here as well. We would like to see the sourcing capability be handled slightly different. We cannot source to a value add work order. Service warranty doesn't allow for returns. We have to go onto the order entry side of things. And lastly, if you're entering a bunch of lines and you want to source them, multi-line sourcing is not an option here as well. So, so these are just a couple of things that we're hoping that the new software can do to make our lives a little bit easier. At this point, I'm just going to enter all the parts that we have to do. Once the job is ready to close, we will stop the labor posting, which I see I didn't want me to log off. So I've spent 2 minutes on this job. I'm going to jump in. Do I have all my parts? I do. So I'm going to move to labor. And then I'm going to decide how much I'm going to charge my customer. In this bigger case, I only spent 2 minutes, but we're going to charge the customer 1 hour, which I will do that. And then we'll create the line. Okay. So once we've done that, you can now see that we do have our labor line. As obviously when we're posting parts as well, just so you are aware, we do get pick tickets in our warehouses. All of our service departments are part of the same warehouse, so they're not separate departments. So we want to make sure that our pick tickets do print in the warehouse, and they do show us that they're for service repair work orders. So I've grabbed an old sample of what a pick ticket looks like, and I do understand that this is a labor one, but again, the same principle applies to parts. That when the pick ticket prints in the warehouse, it does indicate to the warehouse personnel that it's moving to a service repair work order job. So, so that's the last thing. So once, as I said, the labor is done, then we want to close the job out. We can do that very quickly here. We're going to complete that. We're obviously going to finalize the repair order. We do also charge environmental and shop supplies, so we want to make sure that those values are correct before presenting it to the customer. So lastly for us is we submit the invoice to the customer. So I will show a sample as soon as I find it, and I will just move that out of the way. All right, so this was our repair order. I see that I don't have that. I have to go back to it. And our last is to supply the invoice to the customer. Again, we've blacked out, obviously, for confidentiality reasons. But in this particular case, because we only want to give the customer some detail, we obviously added some problem cause and work performed. And then, of course, we do summarize our repair work order and our invoice to our customer. So that's all I have. So hopefully that wasn't too fast, but if there is any questions on that, we can take them at the end. But I think now is a great time to introduce Shawn, and he will show us the same process in ISM CSFS. Shawn, take it away.
Hey, John, just real quick for a point of clarification, all your service is depot service, is that correct?
Yes, it is. We have depot service, but we also have a few service trucks. That's something that we're going to want to explore as well moving forward.
I want to point out that differentiation because Shawn's going to talk about a lot more field service applications.
Yep. Okay, Shawn, take it away.
All right there. So we're going to talk a little bit, just a real quick recap of what we did from last time and then carry on here. So we are currently on-prem, moving to the cloud in about 30 days. We were previously the Swear customer, and so which kind of what you saw there. We have 3 separate service teams from screen, digital, and embroidery, about 20 service techs that are full-time out in the field. Very little depot service, but this certainly could be done as depot service, as Steve and them have done. And we service 3 different divisions. So we also work a lot with warranty or non-warranty parts. So the old days, you kind of saw some of that. That's John says is the old days way that we came from there. Using a static form, you've got multiple people trying to enter the orders afterwards, which then gives you another chance for somebody to miss something or add human error to the variable. Price changes, parts, what do you have in inventory? The biggest thing that I wrestled with having multiple techs is what parts they have in inventory, what have they used, if I send them on site, what's going to happen if they used up the parts that morning. So just getting into a live system. So now with ISM, what we have now is you can use it with both Apple devices. There's a specific app that you can get from the Apple Store that's written for Apple devices. You can still use a Microsoft Surface. You can go to the web page and dial in. And if you were on the session from a couple months ago, you probably saw that where we were dialing in, and it was very much a web page with forward and back arrows, things like that. We're really super excited to be going to the Apple version. You have automated SX orders, or you can set it up. Now today I'm going to show you I'm not going to set it up as automatic because it would simply be click and we'd be done. So I want to show you a few things, some flexibility here, but be aware that you can skip these steps here and set it up to say that when the service tech finishes his service call and he says, I'm done, I want to invoice this, the customer asks, do you want to get a copy of this? They send it to them, and it would simply send it right through the system. There would be none of this step right here. So it would really eliminate things. Some of the advantages that we saw were with this system, we always know what they've got in inventory, because the minute a PO or a WT gets received, it's going to move it over from the web UI over to ISM. And so you always know what current inventory is, current pricing is. And then the minute they use it, it's going to immediately send a ticket, create an order entry ticket in the web UI side. And so immediately that inventory is committed or reserved until it invoices. Even if the job doesn't get finished today, you immediately know what they have in stock. We found that by doing this, we freed up 2 people pretty much full time that were just sitting there taking these static orders, processing them. So it was a tremendous cost savings when you start looking at it like that, as well as all the other benefits of getting the ticket immediately out and get it billed. You're starting to collect on your net 30 type people. You're getting the credit card monies and checks and all that matched up much quicker. So a huge advantage there. Just a quick recap here. Last time we left it with we scheduled a service call. We dispatched the service call. The tech took and went on site, and we worked through how they would enter orders, enter the line items, billable or warranty, since we do both, labor and travel, and then they send over a service ticket order. I'm not going to try to show you in this kind of small screen, but you can see where it does break out everything, and the customer would get a nice clean copy, whether it was being billed back to them, or if it was warranty, it would show a $0 here, a place for notes and things like that. So I'm going to take you into the live demo now and show you what we would look like. And so now we are in ISM, the service order billing console. And so right here, I have the ability to enter in a specific work order, which we've got here, and I've selected it, and you can see it's not been saved here. And so simply here, I can go in and look at the transactions. I've got the customer, I've got a quick brief description. So if I go into the transactions here, I can see the material, labor, and then miscellaneous. Miscellaneous would be things that we don't keep inventory on. That would be like flights and hotel, meals, things like that. So here's the material right here. You can see the service tech. You can see that this product is posted already, meaning that he does have it in stock. One of the safeguards that we chose to set up was if the tech does not have it in stock, it will not let him close out that ticket. It's going to force him to call back in and let's figure out what happened. A PO didn't get received at the branch, or a PO or a WT didn't get received. So we don't want him forcing inventory. You can certainly override that if that's what you wish to do, but that's the way we chose to do it here. But you can see this is posted right here. But if you were to say that, hey, I noticed a mistake here and I want to fix this, I could unpost a particular line item, or I could unpost one particular item here, and I could say, hey, that's not right. This was not supposed to be a billable type thing. I wanted to make it a warranty service for parts or labor, or you have the wrong quantity amount. I have all the flexibility to do that right here. Same thing with the labor. I could unpost. Right now I have line 1 pick, since it's got the little diamond there. I could unpost just that one and go work with it. I could go change the hours worked and say, hey, it was really an hour and a half. Or, hey, that really wasn't supposed to, we were going to cover the travel on that. We don't want to charge the customer. That's supposed to be a warranty operation, which is what they call operations. Basically means it's billable or it's warranty. In our case, we split it up and we say, hey, we want to keep all of our warranty labor separate from our warranty parts, because we're getting either a check or credit for labor, and parts are coming in on a PO. So you have the ability there to do that. And then from there, if everything was correct, right here, I'm going to say no here because I don't want to change anything here. From right here, if I did have an issue, when I come back here and select this, if I knew everything was right by looking at the service warranty ticket that they sent over, I wouldn't even have to go look at that. And I would know that, hey, this has not got any kind of issues. It does not have any unposted transactions. So everything here is good. So as long as I don't see a check mark here, I know this is exactly ready to go. He has everything in inventory. And so from here, it's simply a matter of just, I've got it selected right here, and I just say, hey, I'm going to set this thing to invoice. And then you'll see now I do have unposted transactions here that I'll go fix, but it would set this thing to invoice. So in this case, because I went in there and messed with it and I unposted it, I'm going to post that transaction. And then I will select this here and I will set this to invoice. And then it will actually take this ticket from right here. So there's already an OE ticket on the back side. It will take this ticket, it will set it to invoice. And then tonight, it will take that order from the ship stage to the invoice stage. And the customer will get a copy of the ticket out of the web UI. So like I said, this is all steps that could be optional. It could have literally been as simple as day one, the very first seminar, the tech finished his call. He said, I'm done. I'm going to invoice the customer. The customer is going to get a copy of the invoice. It's going to invoice it automatically and be done with it. But there is the flexibility here. If you ever had to go edit something, that you can go do this. So like I said, we're strictly or almost all 99% we're out in the field, but I'm going to throw it over to Steve. He does some depot work and is fully in the cloud. So he's going to have a few enhancements here he wants to show you. So Steve, you can take it away.
Okay. First thing I want to do, so today is our test environments get 1121.1 CSD or SX.e CSD. So there's some enhancements that are really focused around CloudSuite Field Service. I want to run through them quickly because in our world, it's all about the integration because we are fully in the cloud in both products. So the first things in here, a lot of these came from the ERSs that were submitted. The first one I know for a fact came out of a TWL or TUG post, and it was an ERS, and that's being able to print the pick list from CSD. So the way it was, you had to print your picks from CloudSuite Field Service. They were a different format, didn't go hit TWL guns if you're working on the same warehouse. So it limited some of the things you could do with your distribution system. So they've removed that restriction. It's optional. You can do it either way, but it's now out there that you can do it from CSD. Number two, you can go in and default if you wanted to do core returns or core buys, depending on your operation. You know, it's really important to understand. If you leave it the way it was, it'll allocate to the ticket that you're billing. If you select core return, you can make sure that you have to allocate the cores before it will bill in CSD, which means you have to go in and edit the invoice in CSD. Or you can select core buy, and that's just saying I'm not tracking my cores, and I'm just going to do everything as a core buy and pass it through in the SX side. So as a side effect of that, John finally got his fix. John's operation has had a situation where they would print a pick and they would go pull the product, then the customer would show up and surprise him with the dirty core. And in CSD, once the pick had printed, you could not credit the core on the same ticket. And John really wanted this back. GUI would allow this years ago, and it had gone away, and as of this release, it's back. So that's good for CSD and for CloudSuite Field Service. That's a big point to cover with your parts counters. The next one in there came out of an ERS, and that was to be able to create the RAR now, or I'm sorry, fill the non-stock part off of RAR or create a PO right now. Some people wanted to use their purchasing team to go source their non-stocks. In our case, we want to print the PO right away. Some people are like, no, my product management team are the ones that go out and find the best source and buy that product. It's now an optional. As a side effect of that, they added product line to the non-stocks in CloudSuite Field Service. And those of you that are familiar with taxing in SX.e and CSD, is if you don't have a product line, it won't link to the ICSL record, which means it won't do variable tax. It will default to tax everything. And that's what we've been dealing with in CloudSuite Field Service since we did the integration, is that every time we non-stock bought a part, it would try to tax it. As of this release, that will change. So that's another big, nice change. The next thing in there, those of you that have been tied together with CSD and CloudSuite Field Service for a while now, every time you bought a non-stock part, the purchase order would create an SX.e. It would not trust the cost. So when you posted the purchase order in CloudSuite Distribution, you had to enter the non-stock cost again. Happy to say that they're going to trust that now, and it'll automatically consume that cost. Just saves you a step when you're posting, speeds you up. Warehouse transfers, when you received a warehouse transfer source product, it wouldn't tell CloudSuite Field Service that you had received that part, so it wouldn't post it until the inventory updated. They've now are going to treat it like a purchase order receiving, so it'll be faster to get the invoice cut. These are huge changes all in one release. The next thing in there, I'll cover it quickly in a demo, but product catalog values. So PCAT in SX.e drives your general ledger. That's your product catalog, and your ICSP records will say, hey, this GL is for this part. So you can now control that inside of CloudSuite Field Service at the SRO level, at the transaction level, or at the operation level. So you have a lot of flexibility here, and I'd suggest sitting down with your accounting team and seeing how they would like to see it flow through their general ledger, because it does make a big difference in how things look when you do your month-end reportings. Issues, I'm just going to call this issues that aren't perfect yet. As of the current release or December release, you could use the SX.e invoice number as your CloudSuite Field Service invoice number, which sounded great, except when you ship the, as Shawn just showed, when you set it to invoice and it's going to create that final work order or the final invoice to the customer, what would happen is it would go to SX.e and it would say, hey, invoice this. If SX.e had any issue at all, it would not allow the invoice to print for the service desk. Now, if you got a customer standing there and all you're getting is a blank sheet out, that doesn't work. So we ended up turning that off for now, and kind of asked Infor to take another look at how we can work around that. Because if there's an issue with the integration, I don't want my service desk waiting for the printout. They need to be able to move on, and we'll deal with the interface issue later. So I know they're working on that one. And then the last thing I got in here to talk about is look out for this one. And I know we just talked about, Shawn just mentioned not allowing inventory to go negative. There's a situation, if you try to sell something to negative on hand on a shop ticket, you can have the price come back at zero because you're not selling product you have. And then if you're not paying attention, you can actually bill that all the way through with zero. So support suggestion is just don't allow the negatives. If you're going to do an override, as Shawn suggested, make sure the person doing the override is very familiar with the process and knows to keep an eye on your numbers. And then the next thing I'm going to get into is a little tips and tricks, and that's if a customer wants their name on the generic cash account billing from the shop. The way the integration works is SX.e or CSD is the owner of your customer records, which means your shop system can't create a new customer record. They need to do that in ARSC or ARSS. But so how do you get a generic name assigned to a ship to? We came up with this solution. In ARC, you can have a generic cash account, and then in ARSS, you can create a bunch of just generic ship-to records. I think I give them 20 at a time that are just blank. Enter the name before use as the name on the ship-to record. And what that'll do is when they're in CloudSuite Field Service, they can edit that ship-to record, put the name in there and the address and phone numbers and contacts, and then it will update SX.e with all that information. So when your ticket prints for the customer, their name is on it, their unit is tracked to their name. It also goes to the billing side on the CSD side. When you're chasing receivables, you'll know who that ticket was without having to jump back to the other system. So it's got a lot of big advantages. I know John mentioned before the call that he's got a mod to do something like this in the old service warranty system because it wasn't simple. They had to go in SX.e and make an ARSS record. So this is a nice change and something you're not going to find in documentation. So it's a little TUG tip. The last thing, warning, if you don't want them to have full access to edit ship-tos on all accounts, you need to set up a filter in ION to block the edits so that they can't edit your ARSS. That should say ARSS, but So in ION, there's a document flow that goes from SX to, we call it ISM, but it's CloudSuite Field Service, and then back to SX. All we did was insert a filter, and I even included the path for ship to party master, customer party, party ID/ID. And what I did is I said the customer has to equal 180. If it's not customer 180, I do not want them to be able to edit that record. What this allows you to do is when you're creating an incident, you can go in here and say customer 180. You can pick your ship to, our generic is just COD account. So we'll pick one of these records, then assign that to the incident. We can right click on it and go in and edit that and say, you know, I just named this one demo, changing the ship to name, added the address and things. So I'm actually updating that live for ship 220. It's updating my CSD system as soon as I hit save, and it goes to the service order that I'm working on. You can also add contacts that are tied to that same customer ship to record, and those also go to SX.e. So it really helps tie a whole integration together for these cache walk-in accounts. And to go into a little bit of a demo, we'll pick up a little bit from where we were last time. So we've got a demo SRO. You can see I use that customer 180, and then the ship to is the -020, and you can see I changed the name, and it's now on the service order the way I changed it, and my CSD order has the same name already. At our line level, when you look at a line, for us, we keep the VIN number of the customer at this level, but one important thing to note here is the meter amount, so that might be the mileage. Up until, I think it's this release, it'll come out in CloudSuite Field Service, that meter amount will be available to print out on the service order ticket when you give an invoice. That's a big deal for a lot of our customers. We do the depot work and they want to keep track of their maintenance records. The next piece of this is transactions. And Shawn got into, I'm sorry, next piece is operations. Shawn got into the transactions. I want to talk about the operation a little bit. So this operation code we assigned, I just stuck 0 on this one, but we have lots of predefined ones we use. So we can track what kind of operations we're doing in our shop. On the billing side, when I was talking about the PCATs or the how things are going to hit your general ledger records. So right now I'm saying my material, I want it to follow my SRO transactions. I could say I want it to match the operation. So maybe I want this operation to go to its own product category and bill out on the GL as a different line. But the way we do it is we say whatever the parts are, we want them to hit based on what kind of part it is.
Hey, Steve.
Same with labor. Yes.
We got a question from Jen Skog that it asked specifically, how are you driving your transactions to the correct GL? And do you use different PCATs for parts and labor? And if so, where are you setting this up? And Shawn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we did most of this work with individual PCATs for parts and labor and did the mapping on the ICSEG side in SX. Can you clarify that question for Jen? And Gloria, you might want to unmute Jen so she can ask if there's any follow-up on that question.
Okay. That's exactly how we do it. If you're set to SRO transactions at this level, you're saying I'm going to accept the PCAT that I received from my CSD system as what I want to send back. If you go to operation, you can set it based on the whole operation. Like in my case, I have the default operation one as 94, and that's kind of a labor one. And that one would go, everything would be billed through my shop labor record. You can set up multiple ways of doing that, but if you set it to the transaction level, it's going to be based on how the product is loaded in the CSD system.
So if you're going to do this, well, so if you're going to do this and you want to drive it more by the operation level, which field is actually being used to store the PCAT to bring it over?
It's in your service parameters, you can set the default. And in here, now you're going to get me, I remember, it has to do with the item level up here. So the item that I picked here, this 94 unit tracker, has a PCAT of 94 in CSD. So it's going to use 94 for the entire operation if I had selected operation here.
Okay.
And you can do it differently based on labor if you want.
So in this case, you have material, labor, miscellaneous. How does it know which one which one's driving it off of, like, if I change that to be operations, is it changing everything to operation?
It's changing. If I make this operation, every product I enter, no matter what the PCAT and CSD is going to bill through as the 94 because that's the operational level.
Okay. So it really doesn't look then at necessarily the labor and the miscellaneous on this setup, is that correct?
You can change labor separately. So if I said, I don't care what PCAT level I use for my different labor transactions, I want them all to go under what this 94 is at this operational level. I think Shawn just showed he has different operations that he does for billable labor or billable warranty and something else. So you could drive your PCAT based on the item that you've entered up here on the operational level to change how it hits your general ledger.
Yeah, so, and the reason I ask is I know on my screen currently on this section here below, I have a PCAT displayed, a product category displayed, but we notice that that has not been exposed to go over to affect the general ledger. So
it's changed in this update.
Yeah,
so now
I'm
it goes.
really happy about that.
Yeah, it's now passed through as when CloudSuite Field Service sends the BOD over to invoice the ticket, it sends a sync invoice BOD. If you look inside that BOD, you'll see it's sending the PCATs for every line or operation depending on how you have it set.
Okay, all right.
And that's yeah, it's a good change. They've kind of struggled with it. We had issues a few months ago where it wasn't sending anything, and then CSD accepted blank, and that was not good. Made a mess in the general ledger. So,
well, because our workaround, according to them, was to use the operation code to drive, because that's exposed. So to put that to the general ledger, not the operation code, but the operation number. I think it was.
Yeah, and we wanted our labor separate from the parts, so that didn't work for us. So
Correct.
we really wanted transactions.
Yeah, we're the same way. We want to drive that general ledger entirely differently. So it was kind of a struggle to try to figure that out.
If anyone's using the quick start database to set up CloudSuite Field Service, it defaults to operation on all three of those. So you can go into your service parameters and change that. I said something to Infor about they should default it the other way, but that's just the way it is right now. Is that clear as mud, at least?
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Okay. So the next thing I wanted to just pop into was we'll add some parts. And since Shawn showed a regular part, I thought I would do a non-stock linked SX.e. So if you click on item and you right click, you can go up to catalog and non-stock query. And that'll open up a form. You can search your catalog here. Notice how selected this is blank. This is where you would do a non-stock, but you can't enter anything here. And the reason for that is the only way that you can buy a non-stock part in SX.e is through a purchase order. So if we go back and we say plan, because we're going to plan to go buy something and source it. So now we want to create a non-stock link. So when I right click now and I go to catalog non-stock query, now I have options to add from the catalog or to add a non-stock. And right here, you can pick the product code you're going to use. So because this part doesn't exist, I can decide, hey, this is going to be an axle. You can tell it it's going to be bought from this vendor number. Not a fan if it doesn't give you the vendor name right here. So for your shop, what we do is we created a quick hit list of vendor numbers to their names so that they don't find themselves flipping back into SX.e all the time to figure out what vendor number they want. Because typically the shop buys from about a dozen different places in our case. Right here, they added product line. You can see it's already ready to go. That wasn't there until this past release. And the other thing it was doing, if you put a cost here, it would go to the SRO line, but when it went to SX.e, when you went to receive the PO, it would say it's zero, what'd you pay for it? Now it's going to accept that $22 on the purchase order, and if you say receive all, it'll just receive it at the 22 you used. So I'm going to buy one of those at $22. I'm going to sell it for $45. If you use a product line, so we have customers that have variable taxing based on whether they're a fleet, maybe they're exempt on certain type of products. And what was happening before, since we weren't sending the product line to SX.e, it would default to tax everything because it didn't know if it was a tax or a non-taxed product line. Now I can actually say we're going to send XX as a product line. We typically have the first 2 digits the same as our product line. You can create your purchase order now immediately, or you can delay it to be part of a RAR. And when I hit OK, it says it's going to create a cross-reference. What it's doing is it's creating a purchase order link to this product. And when it sends it to SX.e to buy the part, it's going to wait until it gets a receive back from SX.e to say, this is create the purchase order, here's a PO reference inside a CloudSuite Field Service. You'll never post that in here. You'll post the PO in SX.e. SX.e will tell CloudSuite Field Service, hey, I received that. Go ahead and post that to the transaction. It's going to work the same way for transfers now as well. So it gives you a way of letting your warehouse do the purchase, or the receiving, the payables, the AR tracking, and you're just taking care of the customer's unit and their maintenance, taking care of your labor and your miscellaneous charges in here. That's really all I wanted to cover on my demo. Because the service manager, the billing console, Shawn covered. So I think, I know what else I was going to cover. Sorry, one more thing. We haven't covered notes. And notes are a big deal in the service world. So there are multiple places to put notes. If you open up your operations, and in the Apple app, there's a spot right in there to do system notes. When you open this up, it opens up a box so you can type your text notes, note any. You can also reuse a pre-templated one, look like John's demo in SWR. He had kind of a pre-templated out, hey, this is what was the reason, cause, complaint, correction. So you could template that out so you could just copy that in and edit it each time. The one thing I didn't care for in this form, it defaults with this checked. And that says don't print it on my ticket unless I want it to. So what I did is I just went in very quickly, hit the designer, and went in and said don't make that required, hit save for all users, and it was done. The extension is super easy in Mongoose. So we just went in and said I don't want them internal. You can't do that in the Apple app. It's going to default them to internal. So you could do the same step if you go into order invoicing. I could type same thing in order invoicing. If you say, hey, you'll notice my fields are all checked. I did the same thing. I'm in this. I'm like, well, I really wanted all those checked. You can hit designer this quickly and open that form up and say, I want to be the site default. And you can go in here and say, I want to look at this, and I want to say it's got to be data source. I want to say my default value is going to be, it defaults normally at 0. I want it to be on, so I make it 1 and I hit OK. Save the form, close it in CloudSuite Field Service, reopen it, and you'll find that's now checked. So it's very easy to define your business processes. And that's really all I have for my demo. And I know I got a little technical on you, but there's some great things coming in this release. Definitely read the CSD release notes and the CloudSuite Field Service notes for this time. It was a big release. Turn it back over to John.
Okay, we're at the question point of our session. So if we have any questions, please send them to us. I do have several questions here. I'm just going to get to the right. Okay, first question is, what is the most significant process improvement realized by migrating from service warranty to ISM or CSFS?
It's hard to word it. We were using the minimal part of SWR in our case because we had gotten to the point where it was getting pretty old to deal with. There was a lot of hoops to jump through that weren't very familiar anymore. And I know John makes it look pretty easy to use SWR, but it's a very old application and difficult to train, I guess is the shortest way I could put it. This gets us into a web interface that's easier to deal with.
Shawn, can you add to that, or Rodney?
He's muted.
Yeah, Shawn, you're muted. I'll tell you that, as Shawn alluded to earlier, some of the back-end operations for us in particular, the administrative stuff of having to re-enter the orders for field service, and specifically the back-end accounting functions have been largely eliminated by going to field service from the swear modules. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure and clarify, because there was a mention about vendor claims, the warranty operations that Shawn does on the warranty work, it is generating vendor claims and allowing us to track vendor reimbursements, because we do have some vendor arrangements where we do warranty work on their behalf and they reimburse us for those.
Okay.
Shawn, anything else you want to add on to that?
I think the biggest thing is just a learning curve. You could get people up to speed almost immediately because everybody's familiar with this process of using it. They're just the point and click with a mouse versus using tabs and things like that. It was such a much quicker way, and everything's more intuitive as you get away from the swear module.
So that leads up to my next question, is training. What did your organizations do to ensure a successful transition to CSFS, and what training resources did you employ outside your organization to help train users?
For us, we did it all internally. I did the training as I migrated it over. So it's not an incredibly hard application to learn. Great help screens on each form, which will kind of tell you what the back-end focus is. I didn't really have a lot of experience with Mongoose, but as you get into it, and like I was showing there, to default a field and things like that, it's fairly quick. In fact, in some ways, it's as quick or quicker than extended anything in CloudSuite distribution. So it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, we also did ours internally. Did a lot of taking some screenshots and putting together some help documents, and then working with Zoom or something like that. We could have somebody dial in there and let them drive. Seemed to be the best way to do it. And then you be there watching on their screen and let them take it from start to finish.
Okay, the next question, and I don't want to say this is a pun, but hindsight's 2020. If you could do one thing differently during your migration to CSFS, what would that be? Oh, I'm stumping the crowd here. So
yeah, we went pretty early on for the direct integrated across the cloud, and had a few issues with some bods and things like that really don't happen today. So I don't, to do over again, what would you say, do it now instead of then? But it was good for us. We went into it over a year ago now, and it's just the way we do business today.
Yeah, I would agree. That is exactly what we kept finding out. I think I would say get everything up to the same levels and talk with the people at ISM, the support team there, so that you're not doing a lot of workarounds, trying to be an early adopter and just be on an older version. So that was probably the biggest thing there, was just making everything work correctly. Now that we've gotten things to the correct levels, it's been extremely smooth. And even this last little step that we just took, we didn't have any hiccups. Everything came over. All the old data everything was there for us. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is trying to get everything leveled up to where it's supposed to be before you try to be at one level on the SX side versus a much higher level at the ISM side. That seemed to be the biggest issue for us, is just getting everything to work correctly.
Yeah, gentlemen, let me jump in here. We have a couple of questions that are somewhat similar. Stefan has a question: did Infor or single source systems help you implement? And Chuck's asked how much integration work is required to add CSFS to a CSD environment. So I'll take the initial stage there. Because we started with the original sort of ISM product connecting to our on-prem SX.e, we did have single source involved to a larger degree at the beginning of our implementation. They've been, I'll say that Infor has done a great job taking over more and more of the support and the integration work as it relates to our project, and single source has become less and less involved. And I will tell you that the integration work that is required to add CSFS to a CSD environment is a much lighter lift than it was for us to configure the integration to an ISM on-prem environment to SX.e. And there was a mention there from Shawn about, versioning compatibility. And because we were on-prem with SX.e on a older pre-web UI version, a lot of the challenges that we faced with the product were really more related to the fact that the CSFS versioning kept moving forward and we were stuck with an older SX version. We've since upgraded and a lot of those challenges have dissipated. The biggest thing as far as setting up the integration really is decisions that you have to make on your configuration. We talked a little bit earlier about PCATs, operations, ICSEG mapping to PCATs and how you want to recognize revenue through your GLs. A lot of those are just decisions that have to be made, but the integration now is fantastic. And then secondly, somebody asked, Mark Patterson asked a question that he heard that CloudSuite Field Service has the ability to track fixed assets and their amortization. Is anyone using this? I know we are not doing that on the CSFS side. We are doing that on the SX side. Steve, do you want to answer that question?
We're doing the same. We're on the SX side for that. So I can't really answer that.
I'm not positive about that either, Mark.
Yeah, we'll add that to our future topics as well, Mark, and we'll see if we can try to find somebody that's using it. Another question came, how do you bring, or have you brought in your service warranty data into ISM or CSFS? Is there conversion tools, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the history if you don't bring it over?
So you're talking about from Swear?
Yep.
So last year, about this time, right about the COVID, well, I guess in March, there's a third-party provider that was there, and I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but they were working on taking that database, and they had it pretty well done. Of course, then March hit and everything kind of went on standstill, but there is a process in works that they felt positive that they would be able to take that Swear data, convert it over, and drop it into ISM, but I have not seen an update on that recently, but I could follow up with Ray or somebody at ISM and just see who that was and where they're at on that.
This is Jen again. I've been working with Infor on that for probably the last year and a half, and working with a crew there to try to get this data. Originally was with Linda Wright and a group of her people, and then when she left, it's with a gentleman named Patrick. And we've been working on that for a while, and we're getting really close, but I didn't know if anyone else went down some other path at some point in time and did their own integration work or anything like that. I know originally they told us they couldn't bring over history. They were just going to bring over open orders. And I was like, well, no, that's dumb. We can enter the new orders. I'd rather them be trained and understand how to do that well. I'd really want all that history brought in. That's where there's so much information. And it's a status change. It's we're not talking, if you can do an open order, why can't you do a closed order, right? So we kind of went back and forth on that, and they finally agreed to write that. So it's just been taking them a really long time, and I don't know if it's just because they knew our go live date wasn't right around the corner, so they kind of were not moving real speedy on it, but it seems like they're getting a little farther on it right now.
Okay, another question. Go ahead, unless Steve, you got something there?
No, I was just going to say we ended up skipping that step, and we can still reprint the old stuff. Even in the current CSD, you can still run the program to reprint a SRO from the old Swear system if you need to. Obviously, it doesn't come out all nicely formatted the way it was when we had Swear set up, but it didn't. The data is not totally gone. It's just, it didn't migrate over.
I got a couple more questions. Reporting in CSFS, or is the CSFS data exposed to the data lake?
It is exposed to the data lake. I'm actually working on getting mine moved in there now. I haven't. I'm missing one step to get it done. I don't know if anyone else has gotten it done.
And reporting in general?
So there's some built-in reports. There's maybe 4 of them that I like that talk about tech efficiencies for hours worked versus hours billed. And when it comes to profitability, I do all that in burst based on the CSD data. So I'm not really worried about what's coming out of CloudSuite Field Service. The only thing I really worry about in CloudSuite Field Service is how many different types of operations I've done out of a reason code, and that currently does not come into CSD. So I need to be able to pull that out of the data lake. And the other is technician efficiency, because when it gets to CloudSuite distribution for us, we're just billing a labor that's just service labor, and it doesn't say which tech did it. So I need to be able to go to CloudSuite Field Service to find out which tech clocked in. We were able to bill more than he worked, or the same, or that kind of thing. And that's the piece that I'm working on now.
Okay, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I think we can talk lots about this. I mean, one point I want to make, I know that Steve had mentioned earlier, is the John fix, and really that fix, I'm excited that it's actually getting fixed this month, but I think when I look back on that, it was my involvement in TUG and meeting Steve through TUG that got me to the person who actually understood that change and was able to be a proactive advocate for us. So thanks, Steve, for that as well. So it's another benefit of a TUG membership for sure.
John, and I want to reiterate on that, especially with the involvement in the group that you're heading up with Jen and others. Obviously, the more momentum we can get behind this product, and the more of us getting involved, the more we can help drive the direction of this. Infor seems to be pretty receptive to. They have a much renewed sense of vigor with regards to enthusiasm on this product, and all of the things that we can do to drive ERSs and drive these conversations to request the changes that we want to enhance the product, we can all benefit from. So we definitely need to continue to engage in the service group and push that dialogue and use that conduit to get Infor to move in our direction.
Yep, no, agreed. And I just want to leave with, before I pass it back over to Gloria, my contact information. Obviously, we want to hear from you. If you've just purchased CSFS or you're implementing this year, obviously use the portal to communicate. But if you want to reach out to me, I have my email address and my cell phone number there. So I'm willing to take your call at any time. So I appreciate it. And I'm going to pass it back to Gloria.
Well, John, thank you. I just want to reiterate a couple things that are popping up in live chat. Chuk says, is John on CSFS or RW? And then also Rodney shared that they had just purchased, the program and are in transition.
I believe John is technically in flight. We are using, technically it's ISM. We're still on-prem. We're actually uplifting to full CSFS in February. But right now we're still on the on-prem version. We have SX.e on-prem, Infor OS in the cloud, and our ISM is on-prem. We're uplifting that to full CSFS in February.
Yeah, and we were. I'll be honest with you. We were a holdout of service warranty GUI user. We just bought it at the start of October, so we're looking to make major gains to our move to CSD and CSFS this year.
Well, I think that concludes everything that's populated in chat. And at this time, first of all, I want to thank everyone who has joined us for this hour. It's been a very robust conversation. And also to our esteemed panelists, John, Rodney, Shawn, and Steve, thank you for your contributions as always in enriching our TUG membership. And also, we want you to continue this dialogue and discussion. So please go to the members only chat forums. You'll find that we'll be posting the recording no later than Monday. And if you have any other questions, this board is always monitored, I know for sure, by John and others that are in this panel discussion today. So you can feel free to continue to tap into this brain trust. And also, we'd like to invite those of you who are not yet TUG members to do consider joining us, and just pop on over to www.theusergroup.org and you can join today. And also for all of our Infor software users, don't miss this coming Tuesday's focus webinar on how to modernize your finance department to maximize performance in 2021. And again, our next partner webinar is going to be great. And we want to thank you for joining us today. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.